Hi, and welcome to Matt Holman Talks Mental Health, the podcast where I have the great opportunity to catch up and talk to amazing humans about their journeys with mental health. For this session, I'm so happy to introduce Dominic Short to the conversation. Welcome, Dominic.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Good morning, and you're more than welcome. As I will always do, I'll just do a very brief introduction. This is part of the Podathon series. So this is episode, I checked my paper, 19 of this series of 24. So we're getting there into the last bits now. But Dominic and I met at an event a couple of years ago, I would say now. I can't even remember what year it was. It was probably 2019, somewhere around there, in Switzerland. And it was an event that he was hosting, that Dom was hosting. And it was just great to get to know him, really. We had dinner and caught up and a few drinks at the time. And yeah, just been a really nice sort of progression from there. We've carried on talking. I've delivered some sessions around mental health and well-being for the industry association that he represents, and I'll let him talk about all of that as well. So over to you, buddy. Introduce yourself, please, Dom.
Yes, I think it was 2017, maybe even, and it was on a very, very, very hot summer's evening in Basel.
It was, yes.
And the heat was just amazing. I remember that. And I obviously remember that you did a fantastic session for us at what was then an ACT conference in Switzerland, and I was then representing ACT. And yeah, so I'm Dominic. I've been in the travel industry since 1989. It frightens me sometimes when I say 1989 because it is quite a while ago.
Different century. Yeah.
Many different things altogether. Yes, I started working for Swissair as a trainee in that year, okay, and stayed with them for 12 years until, unfortunately, they went bankrupt. And I moved into doing all sorts of different things. After Swissair, and I'll talk about this in a minute, I managed some music clubs, nightclubs, and moved into meeting and events and things like that. And when we met, I was the global category manager for travel at Takeda, organising everything to do with travel for these guys all around the world. And in that context, I was also the person for ACT in Switzerland. And yeah, that's how we met. And then I also started with a colleague, with Sabah, I started to set up the Association of Swiss Travel Management. And that's a big thing I'm doing. That's where you helped us out with a wonderful webinar. Yep. I remember that fondly, not so long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a travel, meeting and events and marketing person located in Zurich. I'm a very happy family man with 5 wonderful kids and a very supportive wife. So that makes me very lucky and enables me to do what I'm doing and enjoy what I'm doing very much. Yeah. So I was listening to you. I thought last night I'll try and listen to one of your sessions before I go to bed to see what this is going to be like. And I thought I'd listen to my friend Odette talking to you, and it was a stunning experience, because she started off talking about her family and as kids and parents separating, and that being the first shock to her system, her ecosystem of a family. And I was like, oh, here we go. That's me as well, right? Because so my mum from Switzerland went to England in 1969 as an au pair for 6 months, and ended up staying 10 years because she met my dad and they got married and had 2 kids, first me and then my sister. And then they separated when I was 7 years old, and I came to this little village in Switzerland, and my dad couldn't come to Switzerland because of the profession he had. He was a quantity surveyor, and that job just doesn't exist in Switzerland. That's done by an architect. So there was absolutely no way that he could, come and live in Switzerland with us. And so there I was without a dad. for most of my life. And yeah, that was not nice. And
Yeah.
it's something that I never really got over till today. It was just like, such a missing part of me.
Yeah.
And so when I got married, I said to my wife, getting married is one thing, but if we have children, whatever happens, we need to overcome whatever might happen, because I don't want to extend that nonsense that
Yeah.
I had to go through to anybody else, because it just makes absolutely no sense. Yeah, so that was when I was listening to Odette. I was like, just taken way back to being a kid and being without my dad, and not being happy,
Yeah.
at all. And being very lucky that when I joined Swissair when I was 18, I got, the free tickets, and I could go to the UK all the time, and I could start rebuilding a relationship with my dad. And that was fantastic. But you can never make up for the lost time. You just never can. You never can.
Mm.
And so that's something that's obviously with me for life. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was obviously the greatest superhero ever, which a dad has to be, I think. What I'm trying to be for my children now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So very touching to hear Odette talk about her first uncertainties in life, and them being very much mine as well.
Yeah.
So very powerful stuff you're doing. Yeah. Yeah, so there we were. I ended up in Switzerland. Everything was going okay. I was apart from that, I was very lucky, and in an efficient way lazy. So I somehow managed to get through school without really doing anything,
Right.
other than playing football and having a laugh whenever possible,
Yeah.
and ended up somehow out of roughly 45 people that wanted to go and work for Swissair. Only sort of 5 were taken, and God knows how I managed to be one of them. But I managed, and I moved into this wonderful world of travel,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, had a great time at Swissair, and had a very sort of naturally developing career that I didn't even think of as a career. It was just like some kind of normal way of every 2 years you do something new, you get a more important role. It was an environment where you got encouraged to, if you wanted to take on responsibility, and you signaled that that's what you wanted to do,
Mm.
and there was somebody there who thought, yeah, I think that would be a good idea, they just let you do it, and they
Right.
gave you tons of training to make sure that you developed
Yeah.
in a good way. And so there I was in this little bubble of, very forward thinking and supportive, very, very forward thinking human resource department there globally. And people were just taken care of and looked after, and trained, and
Mm.
promoted, and given opportunity, which was fantastic while it lasted. But I had to find out afterwards, in a brutal way, that that's not what real life looks like, right? So
Right.
I come out of this fantastic bubble, and I'm trying to get to a certain point, and you'll understand in a minute.
Yeah.
When Swissair went bankrupt, I went into something completely different. A friend of mine had pointed me in the direction of a job description that he'd seen in a magazine, and he'd faxed it to me, which is always wonderful. I can't remember him calling me and say, he was a guy at Swissair in Basel, and I was in Zurich, and we both knew immediately that we were going to leave, because it's not our dream anymore, right? It's going
Yeah.
to be different. It's not going to be fun anymore. And he called me one morning. He said, "You go to the fax machine. I'm going to send something through to you." and this sounds so funny now, so odd, fax machines. I mean, what is this? I've tried to explain this to my
Yeah.
children. They're like, oh,
That
don't get
doesn't
it.
compute. Doesn't
Don't get
compute.
it. Not
Yeah.
at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
Fax machines. So I got that job description, and it was a managing director of a very well-known techno club in Zurich that also was going into all sorts of meetings and events. And I thought, there's absolutely no way that I'm going to get this job. And there I was. 2 weeks later, I had it. And, and so I did 3 years of lots of very loud music over the weekend, and all sorts of business events, corporate events during the week at 2 locations, working flat out for 3 years, day and night, and just having a fantastic time. And then the owners sort of somehow fell out and tried, you know, and decided that they were going to do something completely different. And overnight, there I was without a job for the first time in my life. And also, you know, based on a handshake deal that if I bring the numbers, I would get a new, more promising role, and then somebody just said, "Well, sorry, we've come to a different conclusion. Thank you very much, but all the very best." And that's something that I just couldn't understand, because of, you know, having worked for a big, you know, very well organized company, something like that, I didn't realize that that could happen, and it happened to me, and I ended up. I don't know if you want to call that depression. The result was I was lying on the sofa for 3 months, and the only thing I was doing was moving from, you know, from the bedroom to maybe the bathroom and back to the sofa, and just pretty much sleeping for 3 months and trying to figure out what had happened to me. And after a while, and obviously feeling this total injustice of being promised something, and then, you know, having just people decide differently and walk away and say, "Well, sorry, mate, and we're doing it, you know, another way now, and without you." And I couldn't get that into my head for a very, very long time. It left me paralyzed. And then maybe after 6 months, I started to realize that probably it was a good thing that happened, because maybe, you know, I could have done that another year or two on the back of, you know, all the fun, working flat out night and day, basically 7 days a week. And then probably I would have imploded completely. So, you know, it took me a while to realize that maybe that wasn't a nice way, but the result maybe wasn't the worst thing. I had 3 fantastic years of putting on all sorts of brilliant shows with fantastic artists, and at the end of the day, managed to get out without, you know, too much, you know, without any ongoing mental problems or something like that. But that was a real shock. I was only about 32, 33, and I was just paralyzed for 3 months. Sofa, bed, and that was it, you know, and just watching lots of meaningless television, and learning a lot about, you know, myself, and understanding I probably just, you know, went a couple of inches past the burnout that I didn't notice at all, because everything was so, you know, high paced and fantastic, and people from all over the world, and musicians, and
you were on that energy or that buzz
all the time. It was fantastic. And so that was the first sort of thing where I realized, okay, there's another dimension, you know, to life, and it's about being healthy and safe. And first time, 32 and a half, 33. Fair enough. Early enough to to notice still. And it always made me think of my dad, who always said to me, you know, you just have to be a little bit more suspicious, Dominic. And I was like, why should I be suspicious? He says, because there's so many evil people out there, and you're just too kind, and you're going to pay the price. And I was like, you know, Dad, I don't want to change the way I am, you know. I'll just keep on trusting in the good in people.
Yeah.
And if it means that once in a while, I get, into trouble because people take advantage of my kindness, then
Yeah.
so be it. And ironically, my father had just passed away when that happened, and I was like, okay, I think I know what you were talking about now,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Bless you.
so he was trying to warn me of something that then turned
Yeah.
out to be just around the corner. It was
Right.
it was one of the last things he said to me. Be a bit more careful, look after yourself.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
bad guys out there,
Gosh. Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah,
So can I ask you? So how
you can ask me anything.
how did you? Yeah. I'll be careful because this is this is public domain information.
Exactly.
So how did you get off the sofa? How did you, that 3 months of laying around, laying down, not being able to move or paralyzed in some ways, how did you get out of that? How did that change?
I think I was not only just totally wasted mentally, but I was
Yeah.
just physically tired.
Yeah.
After 3 years of working night and day
Mhm.
and doing a lot. So when before we started recording this, and I asked you, have you worked a lot through night? I used to work all the time, every
Sure.
weekend. Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night. It was the most
Yeah.
normal thing. Go home, get a bit of sleep, and then go back and start preparing everything to start all over again.
Yeah.
So I was doing that all the time. So I think I was just physically just tired.
Yeah.
And then after a couple of months of an awful lot of sleeping, the energy came back, and that was probably what got me back off the sofa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you
Uh,
just really needed to recharge then
I
and
was just,
reset.
there's something I didn't realize, but all of a sudden, you hand in the keys to the to the place and everything, and you go back home, and the phone stops ringing. That was the most unbelievable thing. The phone just stopped ringing completely overnight.
Yep.
And the good thing was I never went into that business to look for recognition or so-called friends. And so it was fantastic that the phone stopped ringing. It just went quiet on me, and I
Yep.
slept for 3 months, recharged, and then I came back again. That was good, and that led me directly into my second very, very rough experience with mental health and with an issue. I started working for a marketing agency, and a girl in my team totally collapsed after about 6 months. She was also only about 30 odd years old, and she totally collapsed, and
Right.
she just, in a very short period of time, she got weirder and weirder and weirder. And I was sharing the office with her, and I was like, I'd known her for 10 years at least before. And I was like, what on earth is going on with this otherwise wonderful person? She was acting in a very weird way. All of a sudden she was chain smoking. It was another interesting parallel that Odette was talking about, people smoking at the office, right? And you can't believe it. She was chain smoking in the office, like just across the office, just across from me. And I was like, what on earth is going on?
Right.
And then I called in a doctor one day, and because I thought that was what you have to do as a leader. If you've got somebody in your team who's getting worse every day, and you can just watch it happen. So I called in a doctor and said, look, I'd like you to meet somebody. And we went to a meeting room, and she totally collapsed, and she never came back.
Wow.
Never came back. And that was another shocking thing. Somebody completely derailing it in front of you, and there's nothing you can do. And the only thing I could do was, get her some medical support.
Yep.
And then remembering that we said to her, you take some time, you get some therapy. We'll keep this position open for you. Don't worry about losing your job. And then about 6 months down the line, the parents calling us and saying, she's not going to come back. You can give up the job and find somebody new. She's not going to come back.
Wow.
And that was another very, very shocking moment in my life. Very, very.
There's been
very sad.
a few impact moments in there then for you. You've been through a few moments, right?
Indeed, yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. And maybe if I don't know how we are for time, the other thing that everybody is talking about is, COVID and mental health.
Yeah.
And I've got a very positive story there.
Okay.
I told you privately a bit more than a year ago that my daughter was unwell after being bullied at school, and so for her, when they shut down the school, it was the best thing that could happen to her. And we as a family, we just spent so much time together, all seven of us, and had time to look after each other. And her not having to go back to the place where everybody was mean and evil to her was maybe just the right thing at the right time. And so with all the disastrous effects of this pandemic, in my very personal little hemisphere, we got some quality time out of it, and my daughter got some air to breathe, and she's it's like day and night. She's a lot better.
That's great.
So it's a little positive side effect of everybody being at home. And I loved, the first lockdown. It was fantastic. I was at home in my garden all the time. We had a fantastic summer. We had a fantastic summer. I said, this can go on forever, it's good. And the only thing, obviously, that I really miss is traveling, be it for business or privately. But that's obviously a massive ego topic. If you look at people losing their loved ones in the most dramatic circumstances, me not being able to travel is just not even worth talking about,
No.
And being in a very lucky position where everybody is sort of over-insured in Switzerland, and we're all very well looked after, and there's big debate on the television about, how many billion of the national bank's annual profit should be put into, the comeback of the pandemic. And it's like absolute monkey business, because there's just so much money sitting around in this country.
Right. Yeah.
And let's hope, that we're back to whatever will be the new normal, if that is the word we agree to call it. Don't know, but we're in a very lucky position where people aren't, just running out of money and having no opportunity to get some help from the state and from the programs that have been put up by the state.
No,
it's not ideal. If you're self-employed, it's a bit complicated. But if you're in regular employment, there's state programs to back up everything. So we're very lucky. And
wow. I think you got some really fascinating insights, Dom, and your story, and your experiences and everything else that you've shared. I just want to say a huge thank you for sharing those as well. And they're not easy things to talk about, and I know some of those are, they're emotionally charged as well, and just want to say a huge thank you for being open and sharing those with me, and the people that are listening to this, of course, as well, when it goes out shortly. Any final thoughts from you, mate? Anything else you want to sort of impart to people, share with people, encourage people?
Well, it's one thing that I'd like to offer. If in any way I can help and support what you're doing, I'd like to publicly offer that right now. If there's anything that you think I could be useful for, because it is a brutally important topic, and it's something, that people, for all the wrong reasons, think that they're on their own, and the minute somebody opens up, you find out that there's all sorts of stories everywhere that people are struggling with, and that talking is in fact the easiest step towards regaining confidence, or whatever it might be that you need. And if I can offer, if I can offer my help, as I've been talking a lot, basically constantly now, but I can actually listen very well, and
you've seen me present. I don't let anybody have any airtime. It's all my floor.
yes,
Leave
of
me.
course of course it is.
Yeah,
of course it is.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and I do genuinely appreciate that. I think, you know, these conversations, we're just going to keep doing them. We're going to keep talking about mental health until we bore it to normality. You know, it's got to be a normal conversation. We've got to have the ability to say, I'm struggling, things aren't great, I'm worried about this, and really to have people who will listen genuinely to that. So that's what we've got to try and create. That's what these conversations are really about. It's giving people accessibility to, and you're a normal everyday person like I'm a normal everyday person, and that's what I want it to continue with as well. You know, we keep talking, share it, and people will listen.
Yeah, I'd like to also have you back doing something with us for the association somehow.
Okay.
And you know, because I remember the last session and the feedback, and it was very, very good. Yeah. And let's talk about that later.
We'll take that offline outside of the podcast.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But it's on record now, so anybody listening can back me up. Dom said it was going to happen.
Yeah. And if there's anything else I can do to help, if you have any ideas, I'd love to.
No worries.
Thank you very much for having me.
Mate, honestly, I wish you all the very best for you, your family, and for everybody else, and for Saba, and you know, and all the stuff that you're doing work-wise to help and support the, you know, the economy or the industry of business travel, especially in these difficult moments, right? So let's keep talking. Thank you so much for being part of this. I'm really happy.
So am I.
Number 19. We'll tick it off.
Good luck. Keep going.
Brilliant stuff. You stay safe, Dom. Look after yourself.
You too. Bye.
See you, mate.